Welcome, everyone, to Veritas Live. I'm your guest host today, Eric Wiggins, and I'm coming to you from Houston, Texas, where we still love to hold on to our summer weather. It's still hot here. As always, we love to know where you're tuning in from, so please put it in the chat below. And in the spirit of Cybersecurity Month, we're talking about the state of the CISO today. And we have our own Veritas Field CISO, Dr. Joye Purser, who just received a Lifetime Achievement Award for her work in information security. Welcome to the show, Joye. And can you tell us more about this great award?
Thank you, Eric, and it's great to be here and great to be representing Veritas today. Yes, a nonprofit organization called ISC Squared helps with certifications and credentials like the CISM and CISSP or CISP, Certified Information Security Systems Professional credential. So it is a very well-known organization, ISC Squared. And I was very surprised when I found out that I had been the recipient of the Tipton Lifetime Achievement Award in Information Security. And so in November of this year, I will go to Nashville and officially accept the award.
Oh, that's super exciting. I hear Nashville's beautiful to see.
Yes.
So, Joye, how would you describe the state of the modern CISO, and what do you see as top challenges?
You know, things change all the time in the world of cybersecurity, and that's what makes it so exciting. And I would say, in terms of three top challenges for Chief Information Security Officers today, one is really getting the attention of the leadership of the organization. I think a lot of CISOs really suffer in getting the attention of the C-suite to help reduce risk to the organization in cybersecurity or in physical security. And so it's very important for CISOs to develop business acumen, to talk about security in terms of the risk to the business, so that they can give valid information to senior executives in the company about whether they should accept those risks or mitigate those risks and how to prioritize those mitigations. So really being able to speak the language of risk to the highest levels in the organization is a challenge for CISOs today and will be. And also, I would say retaining talent is very important. You know, a lot of people want to get into cybersecurity, and I think it's a great equalizing profession in that it just requires a curiosity, a passion for the subject area, the willingness to get out of your comfort zone. But there seems to be a gap in talent that is, you know, just below the level of the CISO, but higher than the level of the emerging talent. And so CISOs really have to work to retain that top talent in their organizations.
And in retaining that top talent, what would you suggest they do? What are some of the tactics that they would actually employ to retain that top talent to help bridge that gap between the people that are coming just in and then, you know, those that don't have that same education level?
Succession planning is really important. I believe that any senior leader in an organization, including the CISO, should be looking for talent that would be up and coming in the organization, and then to give those resources stretch assignments, let them know that they've been identified as rising stars in the organization, communicate with them so that they feel supported, work with them so that they can address any gaps in their own experience and seasoning as they rise through the ranks. So I think it just comes down to relationships and being intentional and purposeful about supporting talent in the organization.
That's pretty neat. I definitely see that being done, you know, here at Veritas for my own experience, for sure. So just back to our live audience, we have people tuning in from UAE, Washington, India, Switzerland, Dublin, and I think, Joye, you're there in London today, right?
I am, yes.
Okay. So what are some new considerations for CISOs now that security, governance, and compliance are actually top concerns for corporate boards?
Well, you mentioned the word governance, Eric, and I think that's important to mention that NIST the Department of Commerce's National Institute of Standards and Technology has released a draft of its Cybersecurity Framework 2.0. And of all of the elements in the graphic, identify, detect, protect, recover, the word govern is new. And the word govern applies to all 5 of the elements from the previous NIST cybersecurity framework. And really just a framework is a way that the organization speaks the same language and can really have some way to identify the different areas in which they can protect the security of the organization and to identify and reduce risk. So govern is really a key word that I want to focus on, because for me, that means, and NIST states that it means the organizational structure and the teams and the technology that is present to support each of those elements in the framework. So I actually think that's a really important inclusion of the word govern in the new 2.0 NIST cybersecurity framework. And there is an open comment period that NIST is accepting comments until November 4th. So I would encourage everyone to show up in the cybersecurity space. Take a look at the draft framework and send in your comments on how it can be improved, if you support it, what edits there should be.
Okay. And on that train of governance, you were talking about, in the previous question I asked about how they need to network across. So as part of that governance conversation, building out that network within the groups so that, traditionally groups that didn't talk to each other, the CISO needs to help connect them together in order to get a better security response in place, I'm guessing is what you were trying to refer to in the first question as well. So do you have anything more along the lines of those communications and some of the things that might be new for, a CISO to employ to get that network established in areas that they may not have worked with before?
Yes. Stovepipes are the enemy of cybersecurity. And by that, I mean within the company or within the organization, when one important component, such as, IT security or the backup crew or legal don't speak to each other, or product development, if you're a software company.
Yeah.
If they don't work together or communicate, it's really, really risky for the security of that organization. So I think that's one important reason for the role of the field CISO. So I just wanted to mention that because Veritas hired me as the Chief Information Security Officer for the field. Field is defined as customers, salespeople, and sales engineers, all who are touching externally to the company, right? And so I have conversations all over the world with customers, and I listen to their concerns when it comes to security. What are the top of mind threats that your organization is facing? Or what are new tools that help bolster your organizational resiliency? And so I listen to their answers, and then I share those learnings throughout the organization and also with other customers and in my community. So I think it's building that community wherever you are, reaching across the organization and having people with the relationship skills that can relate to all sorts of people and empowering them to work throughout the business. I think it's really important to helping to galvanize and increase the security of the business.
Okay. We actually, on that actual train of thought, we actually have an audience question where they're asking which certificates would be more effective for them to pursue with a job in cybersecurity.
I would say the entry-level certification is called Security Plus. And there are several reputable nonprofit organizations, they are trade organizations that grant these certifications. One of them is CompTIA, COMPTIA. The other, of course, is ISC Squared. These are world-class organizations with a very rigorous process for these certifications. So I'm so glad to know that people are interested in this field. I do see cybersecurity as the great equalizer because you just have to be willing to get out of your comfort zone and learn new things. And I would encourage people to, enter from IT help desk. As we could see with a recent incident involving the casino industry, the IT help desk is actually the front line and really have to be well trained to spot those red flags or warning signs that there could be a threat actor in the midst. So I really appreciate that question, and I'm very encouraged to know that people are interested in getting into the profession.
Yeah, definitely. It actually came up multiple times in our chat in terms of which certifications. And actually, someone asked what's the importance of the ISC squared certification for people entering that particular area. Is it
So the certifications basically help to increase a person's knowledge about information technology. How is data stored? How does it move throughout the organization? What are the ways that the data is controlled or control could be lost? What are basic ways that data and information can be protected? It really starts at the beginning with that Security Plus certification. But I would also say, and my friends have said the same, that on-the-job experience is gold in cybersecurity. However you can get it, a paid internship would be great. And I know of a couple in the Atlanta area that are just wonderful. One is supported through an organization called Year Up, YEARUP. And that's mostly for the Atlanta community. There are businesses that partner with Year Up, for example, that offered a paid 6-month IT internship. They're not all security. It's just information technology for people who are eager to get into the field. But I would look around in your own community or city for these internships, paid or unpaid, because even more than the certification, the experience is just really important.
Definitely. So my question now is, what would be on your list of like best practices for CISOs to employ, especially in this era of heightened cybersecurity?
Building a great team. When someone gets to the point of a CISO, they tend to move away from being a technical expert. So some CISOs, most CISOs actually have an IT background. They've risen up through, network security administrator or IT help desk or something like that, and have been working within IT, within companies for a long time. Others come more from a management consulting perspective. I know several CISOs who have worked at Big Four management consulting firms and know best practices when it comes to organizational design, efficiency, crisis response, even, or crisis communications. So the CISO really needs to think about and manage a very wide variety of issues. Those could be governance, risk, and compliance. Are we compliant with our ISO 27000 series regulations? Because if you're not, it could be very expensive if you're a bank or in financial services, right? CISOs have to have a budget that they have to manage. They have talent that they need to bring up. They're in charge usually of the IT organization. And so what about endpoint security, left of boom? What about anomaly detection tools? How do we identify our most important data to back up? And are we doing tabletop exercises to exercise restoring our backup, right? Restoring the data from backup. So really it's key for the CISO to be able to speak the language of risk and risk management, particularly enterprise or broad risk management, because that helps them speak in the broad kind of language that the business leaders understand, and they can speak of security as an enabler of the business rather than a drain or a cost on the business.
Okay, I definitely see that. So your top ones would be building a great team, employing the right tools to be able and technologies to be able to identify and mitigate the risk factors, and then really planning and building out your recovery plan and making sure you exercise frequently.
Yes.
All right. Let's see if there's any more questions from the audience. And while we wait, I do want to ask something that's been on my mind, which is so I was watching the Apple TV Plus show, and they actually have a cyber attack that happened on the show. And one of the first lines after the attack is, "Where's our CISO?" And I'd never actually seen in pop culture a reference to a CISO. So I wanted to know from your experience, what pop culture reference would you say describes cybersecurity?
Oh, so I've been watching the Star Wars series again,
Mm-hmm.
after I'm not going to tell you how many years, but basically in The Empire Strikes Back, which is episode 5,
Yes.
C-3PO says, "R2-D2, you know better than to trust a strange computer." In a moment of crisis, an action scene in which R2-D2 is trying to unlock a door. As you know, he has lots of skills and tools to be able to pick
Yes, he does.
locks and undo combinations. And so they were trying to escape through this heavy door, to get to the Millennium Falcon to escape. And
Uh-huh.
so when I heard C-3PO say, "R2-D2, you know better than to trust a strange computer," I thought, oh, this is just so perfect and so
Yes.
prescient for today's times.
Yeah, you definitely could make a meme out of that one for sure, I would say. And I'm a huge Star Wars fan, as you can see from all my Lego sets behind
I
me.
do see that.
All right, well, let's see. We have one more audience question. This one comes from Kustab, and he asks, "I have studied ISO 2701 and ISO 27002 and some other documents. How do I prove my proficiency by which I'm certified?" So what should he employ? What language should he employ? Maybe in responses to an interview, or even in questions that are in the application process, to prove that he has a good grasp of the knowledge for those.
So really, the demonstration of that knowledge and skill will be through the on-the-job experience and through referrals from
Mm-hmm.
employers. So that is, one of the key frameworks and certifications if you're in banking and financial services, right? If you're
Mm-hmm.
in any kind of financial transaction type of company. And so it's very specific for that industry vertical. And so the answer is that really is a tradecraft in which it's an on-the-job experience, that he would have worked with that framework. And so then either rises up through the organization or has that, and the future employer can interview to determine proficiency in that area.
Okay. So I guess his response, he just needs to make sure he references those certifications actively when he's responding to the question in an interview
Yes,
situation.
and to use it in a problem solving context during the interview about
Mm-hmm.
how he was able to leverage his knowledge in that area to help solve problems for the bank or financial services company.
The application of the certification is key for sure. Okay. All right. Let's see if we have any other audience questions. This is from Marie. How can boards provide governance and oversight without managing the cybersecurity function? So I'm guessing they're asking about what's that fine line that a board needs to walk with the CISO in terms of managing
I
cybersecurity.
understand. Yeah, I would say that for a very large company, and this probably
Mm-hmm.
depends on how big is the company and what industry or sector it's in, right? So
Mm-hmm.
for some industry verticals, many of the board members will not have the depth of knowledge, technical knowledge, to be able to understand cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very important in that instance for the CISO to identify a champion on the board an individual who has some knowledge and interest in understanding cybersecurity or security topics, and to build a relationship so that that board member at least can be a champion for the CISO and in the area of security. If it's a smaller company in an industry vertical that may be more directly relevant to cybersecurity, there might be instances where board members get to be more into management roles, but I would not expect that from the board. Generally, the board is looking at the business's bottom line. In other words, how profitable, how sustainable is our business over time or our organization? And so usually they would not be managing the IT decision-making. That would be left to the recommendation of the CISO in consultation with the chief financial officer.
I would definitely put that in the top tips for a CISO. So hopefully we can grab that snippet for sure post-show so that our audience can use that recommendation. I love that explanation. It's great. We have one more question from our audience, which is, are programming languages like Python important to cybersecurity? We do have a large programming audience or computer science audience for sure on this show. So what would your response be?
Well, now we're getting into a technical area, which is definitely not my area, but I would say this about software coding and development. This is really important for the supply chain. The whole process, and we're a software company, the whole process by which individuals develop the code, most of the time they're getting it from somewhere off of GitHub or maybe they're writing it, but most often they're getting it from a different source. So what are the steps in place in that process, regardless of the code, that help to control the information so that not one individual has the keys to the kingdom, can see the entire span of that process of developing the code for a product, software product. So that, is the field of DevSecOps. And I heard earlier today, someone would prefer to call it SecDevOps. So the development operations, really security should be first.
Yes.
And so I would say that even more than the code itself, are those people and processes and technology tools in place to check that that software chain is secure, that the supply chain.
I would agree. The shift left philosophy and the move to actually prioritize security and testing of code and everything through the development process earlier so that you can find any kind of vulnerabilities earlier. Definitely what you're talking about. I love that, flipping the SecDevOps so that security is always first and top of mind. Definitely adds to your explanations that you've given for us today. All right. Well, I just wanted to know, thank you so much, Joy, for coming on the show today. As always, we really enjoy your participation. And do you have any other closing remarks for our audience that they would appreciate?
I just want to encourage everyone to enjoy Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And I would urge each of you to get out in your community and show up as part of your security community with your peers and develop relationships, professional relationships with your peers in your city or town, because those are really important. And you don't want to try and be making friends in a crisis. You need to have those relationships solid already. So we can take Cybersecurity Awareness Month as a great opportunity to get out there and network with our peers.
Definitely. I would agree. So as always, everyone, thank you for joining our show. And we want to provide some additional resources for you to learn more about what we talked about today. The first one is our ransomware timeline and assessment tool that is located on our homepage. The link is also below. And the second one, which you would enjoy, is also just on the topic we talked today, which is the top 5 tips for presenting cyber risk to your board. It's a very good blog, a wonderful read. And last but not least is our Veritas Cyber Resiliency newsletter. This you can subscribe to on LinkedIn. It has lots of resources from short videos to fun infographics around cybersecurity and resiliency. I always love a good visual. And we also have blogs as well as solution briefs for you to learn more about all the subjects around cyber resiliency. So as always, make sure you tune in on October 24th. Demetrius Malbrough will be back hosting the show. And please stay safe and back up often.